Here, I'm gonna record my thing, okay? You guys are gonna get to see my my YouTube persona come out. Okay. All right. Just gotta channel my my YouTube content creator vibes. Like and subscribe. Smash that like button. Okay, I'm ready. Hey guys, what's up? So I wanted to I fucked it up. Shit. Hang on. Redo. Okay. Yo guys, what's up? It's your boy Swim here, coming at you hot with another patch analysis. I say this, we've only gotten like 2 patches, but you know, numero duo. So we got right off the bat, these are basically item changes. They've adjusted the gold values on a bunch of the items in the game, and we're just gonna spend a few minutes in the deck builder going over them. And the first of which is a Blade of the Vigil tweak. So they bumped this up from 2 cleave to 4 cleave. This is nuts. That's a lot of cleave. And I think this card was already low-key good in draft. I think it was kind of underrated in draft personally. However, I'm not an expert on draft. I defer to others' opinions who play draft a lot more than me. And they tell me I'm wrong, and Blade of the Vigil wasn't actually that good. And they're probably right, because I don't play that much draft. So, however, now that it's at 4 cleave, this card's crazy in draft. Some people are saying it might see experimentation in constructed. I think it will see experimentation. You might be able to slot it into like some red decks as like a one of, not more than a one of. There's not too much to synergize with this card. As always, you can combo it with Ursa. Ursa does have, you know, the ability to minus armor anything it damages, including cleave targets. But outside of that, it's kind of hard to find too much of a reason for it, and you're not gonna put Ursa in your deck just for an excuse for that. So I think it's still probably not quite on the constructed level, unfortunately. It's got a really hard time finding a place in competitive decks with Blink Dagger and Jasper Dagger as existing. But it's a card that could actually see some experimentation as a one-of slot. Next up, we got Keenfolk Plate. Ah, yes, this one. 8 gold. Equipped heroes, attackers have -1 armor instead. So now it's basically got the same treatment that Timbersaw's reactive armor buff got, which is pretty cute. Basically, it means you're able to get some minus armor on something with your Keenfolk Plate. I'm not gonna lie, this card's pretty bad. It's not really much better. This is actually, you know, a contester before this buff for the worst item in the game. Sadly, it's actually still a contester for that. I don't think you should buy this item. In the future, if they add like more taunt mechanics or something like that, like more cards that taunt her value, you could actually... No, probably not. No, this card is probably still... It's 8 gold, guys. It's going to be trash. Sorry. So I probably wouldn't purchase this. When we go over items, it's important to note there's like 4 tiers of items. Like there's like the constructed level items, the draft level items, the side shop, the like secret shop level items, and then like the trash tier items. Keenfolk Plate is still trash tier. Sorry, Keenfolk Plate. Stonehall Pike, on the other hand, and Stonehall Plate both got buffed. They're both now 5 gold instead of 6, which is neat. These cards, you know, you want to get them online early for their effects to ramp up, and that 1 gold actually makes them a little bit better in draft. Unfortunately, and you're gonna hear a kind of common recurring theme throughout this analysis. You will find that these are cards that were draft cards and are still draft cards. You're not going to see these cards in constructed, I don't think. Especially because some new health items came out that are a little better. And Stonehall Pike, I mean, it's just so hard for to reconcile running sword items, weapons, that aren't like Blink Dagger or sometimes the occasional Jasper Daggers, demagicking them all, etc. Like, there's just not enough synergy with, like, scaling attack or scaling armor in this way yet. But they were decent draft items before, and now they're actually, you know, a good bit better. I mean, that 1 gold could actually make a difference. I think it's important to not understate how much 1 gold actually is in terms of evaluating an item, especially going down from 6 to 5. That's a really big deal. So I think these are definitely much better draft scoops now. Barb's Mail. Barb's Mail is interesting. This is also one of the contenders for worst item in the game, right up there with Keenfolk Plate. It was pretty neck and neck at the end there. We may never know which item was worse. And now it costs 5 gold. Hey, look at that. Unfortunately, same as Keenfolk, this is still in the 4th category, the do not purchase under any circumstances category. I say that after having bought 2 of these in the We Play Agility tournament in the secret shop. I don't know how I managed to buy 2 of them in the span of like, it was like 1 series too, I think. I want to say my series against Lumi, but you don't buy this. It doesn't do anything. It's, this is not a good card. Okay. Next up, we got Assassin's Veil. Holy shit. 6 gold down to 4. That's crazy. That's nuts, guys. That's insane. So Assassin's Veil now costs as much as a Revitel Signet Ring. And it's impossible to talk about this without also talking about Phase Boots, which got buffed. It's now 5 gold. That's insane. Phase Boots was so good. It's even better now. And I gotta say, I actually think I like this buff. I think Phase Boots is a well-designed card. And so it might seem weird to some people buffing a card that was already played competitively. And honestly, I don't think it needed the buff, but at the same time, it's a card that, like, it's well-designed. It makes a good use of the fundamental game mechanics, and it's also pretty skill testing for both players. You know a card is well-designed when it forces both players to play intelligently. But it's also really important to note now, when we're talking about these 5s and 4s, now that we're getting into these competitive level items, Assassin's Veil and Phase Boots, both of these are competitive. These are both in the 1st category. These are constructed main deck item level items, right? And if we're talking about that, we got to talk about gold cost, right? So there's this interesting mechanic and artifact. It's especially prevalent in constructed, where you can see how much the opponent has spent on their items, and you can kind of track gold costs, right? So, for example, you know, if you spend 5 gold, I know you have a Phase Boots, a Maul, a Stonehall Cloak, something in that range, or a Jasper Daggers, right? Those are kind of the 4 things I'm thinking. And then Potion of Knowledge is the 5th one, because that also costs 5 gold. So I see you spend 5 gold on one item. I know you bought one of those 5 items, right? I see you spend 8 gold on 2 items. I know you bought one of those 5 items and one of the 3 gold items. Presumably either Cloak, TP Scroll, or Salve, right? So because of this interesting dynamic, items that have the same cost as other items you are running are actually literally better, right? Just in a very subtle way. Phase Boots not only got buffed by 1 gold, but now if I buy a Phase Boots, you don't know I have a Phase Boots. I could have a Jasper Daggers, a Maul, a Stonehall Cloak, or a Potion of Knowledge, which I think often doesn't matter, but there are situations where it does, right? So it's kind of important to keep that in mind. Assassin's Veil kind of has the same treatment, although it's kind of less useful because 4s are all health items, right? Like Assassin's Veil is Revital Signet Ring or Fountain Flask, so you know if it's a 4, it's a health item. But it's a little bit of a subtle tweak to these. So the age-old question, it was easy to answer before. Which is better, Phase Boots or Assassin's Veil? Well, they do similar things, right? They allow you to redirect the target of your attack, and Phase Boots just has a more powerful effect, because you can also send your stuff into tower. It's just more of a versatile effect, being able to swap position rather than choose a combat tower, or a combat target. Now, it's 1 gold less. That's a big deal. I think we'll start to see in the coming days, these 2 cards will see a lot of play in constructed, particularly in like the red decks and the black decks. These are the ones that need to be able to kind of like choose targeting very carefully. I should note that this is a buff to red and black as colors, for sure. Like Assassin's Veil is great on like Phantom Assassin or Sorla Khan. Phase Boots is great on those same heroes, but also, you know, both items are good on like red heroes as well. The bristlebacks, the axes, just anything that has high attack wants to be able to choose whether it's attacking tower, whether it's attacking hero, pretty much doesn't want to hit a creep, you know? So these are powerhouse cards. These should be considered a buff to those 2 colors. Honestly, I suspect that Phase Boots is probably still going to be the better card than Assassin's Veil, but I think both will see play. And the 1 gold's additional you're paying for Phase Boots is not to be understated. It's really not. Like Traveler's Cloak and Signet Ring, you look at these cards and Signet Ring looks so much better because it only costs 1 gold more, but it gives you the -3 bounty. But in reality, there's a lot of decks where Traveler's Cloak is better than Signet Ring, just because that 1 gold. So Assassin's Veil and Phase Boots might be pretty similar. This is a huge change for constructed. You're still not going to be able to fit these into something like this mono blue deck we happen to have pulled up here, just because, you know, there's no reason to pay that extra premium on that. But these are going to see a ton of play in the future. Interestingly enough, it's going to be harder for people to fit in. I think this is probably going to be effectively a nerf to the Traveler's Cloaks and the Revital Signet Rings. Now we're kind of at the point where, you know, for the decks that wanted to play them, like, for example, red-green ramp, or mono-red, or red-black, Those are kind of the three that come to mind immediately. I guess there's like mono black as well as a deck. These decks will run, I mean, maybe even like a 5 of combination, like 3 Phase Boots and 2 Assassin's Veils or something like that. They're going to see experimentation either way, but it might be harder to fit in something like Stonehall Cloak now, which is very, very interesting because, you know, Stonehall Cloak is still going to be kind of a necessary counter to decks like mono blue. So it's going to be hard to kind of make choices in those item decks there. And I definitely like that. It's, I like both of these changes, I think, the Assassin's Veil and the Phase Boots. Okay, next up, Broadsword now costs 6 gold alongside Chainmail and Furline Mantle. Honestly, not much to say here. These were bad draft cards before. These were in the 3rd category of item, which is the secret shop item. These were not the like never play items. Well, okay, Chainmail is. Chainmail is a never play item. But Furline Mantle and Broadsword, sometimes you actually buy them in the secret shop. And now, they're a little bit better than that, you know? I mean, you could theoretically put these in a draft deck. Chainmail is still going to be a do not purchase. Not honestly too much to say about these. Next up, Keenfolk Musket. Keenfolk Musket got bumped down. It's down to 6 gold. I actually experimented running this card in Vin Kelsier's mono red deck, and it kind of worked okay, but this is still not going to be constructed level. You should still look at this as a draft level card. And in drafts, I think it's perfectly acceptable. Again, it's just another one of these draft cards that got bumped up in draft, right? And speaking of bumped up in draft, we can we can talk about Blade of the Vigil. So, wait, did we talk about Blade of the Vigil already? We talked about Blade of the Vigil. Ooh, yeah, okay, we got this already. Okay, never mind. Bad transition. Okay, speaking of bumped up in draft, we can talk about Red Mist Maul. So check out this card. Down to 9 gold. You notice a pattern here. They're basically just taking a bunch of items that didn't really see a lot of play and bumping them down a gold cost, which is kind of nice. So Red Mist Maul now now costs 1 less gold. Again, not too much to say about this. It's another one of those draft cards that was a draft card, still is a draft card, is slightly better as a draft card. You're not going to run this in constructed, except for, you know, maybe being a like secret shop purchase or a budget player or something like that. Same treatment got added to Obliterating Orb, 10 to 9. So now it's at 9 gold. Not too much to say about this one either. Again, I think most of these don't really have long-term implications. This is a pretty minor patch, all things considered. They're just bumping around the item amounts, and there's some that have major implications and some that have minor ones, right? So, Obliterating Orb is down to 9 gold. Honestly, this item was bad. It was kind of overrated. It's going to be a future tech potential. I think there are going to be patches in the future where this card sees play. I don't think this is that patch, unfortunately. Even though it costs 1 less gold, it's just not enough to use this on. It was kind of an overrated item before. And even when like Aghanim Sanctum and Cheating Death were kind of more powerful threats, with the advent of like Cheating Death and Ramp and Storm decks running around, it still was not really a card that was really worth running. Okay, Ring of Tarrasque, another draft item that, hey, it looks like it gets a little bit better. You're still not going to run this in constructed. Unfortunately, regeneration is just kind of a draft mechanic. Because draft is all about the combat phase, right? So the way to think about constructed versus draft is about the combat phase, and constructed is about the action phase, right? So constructed has all these powerful denial tools, you know. That's why initiative is so important in constructed. You have like duel, you have Berserker's Call, you have Gust, which Drow hasn't really played in constructed anymore. But you have these initiative cards that you don't really have in draft, right? Or, you know, initiative, nukes, force the opponent out of play options. So in constructed, regen is just not a very powerful mechanic because this relies on going to combat phase to kind of give value, which is why you see Enchantress as a very powerful draft hero, but not as powerful of a constructed hero. Ring of Tarrasque is the same way. You're just not really going to get constructed value out of this, but maybe from the secret shop under certain circumstances. This is definitely an item that you could see yourself buying from the secret shop. It's mostly a draft card that you want to pair with squishy heroes like Debbie or Sorla. Often can pair with the blacks. But next up, and this is an exciting one. This is one that does actually have constructed implications. Cloak of Endless Carnage. You guys might have seen this already. It's just been chilling here in my deck. 10 gold. 10 gold. That's crazy, guys. That's insane. I think that, so it was at 13 gold before. I think that Cloak of Endless Carnage was probably a good card in mono blue, even when it was at 13 gold. If you were watching my streams a lot, you might notice like I experimented with it. I brought it to some tournament. I think it was a minor tournament. I think at the We Play Agility, I kind of bitched out and cut it. But, you know, I was still in experimental phases. It's at 10 gold now. That's really good. You get 8 health, and you draw a card after allied neighbor of equipped tier dies. So, obviously, in mono blue, you pair this with Diabolic Revelation. You pair this with At Any Cost. And you just get your stuff online. Right now, I'm kind of replacing the Hourglass in this deck. I would say this is probably the only deck this fits in. Some people are thinking about running it with black, with Lich, or black-blue. But I don't think this can necessarily provide enough value outside of this kind of deck. I do like that this encourages more combo style decks. I guess you could run it in like blue-green Salamene Storm as well, for sure, I think. But probably not outside mono blue or blue-green will this be proper in. But hey, I think mono blue is still one of the best decks in the game. And a card that influences that deck is a card that, you know, is definitely constructed level noteworthy, right? So it's will change the way this deck is built a little bit. I still need to experiment with how this kind of affects ratios. Maybe I still want to run Hourglass as a one-of in this deck. Maybe I even want to try 2 Cloaks. I don't know. We'll have to see. But either way, this is definitely a card that's on my radar all of a sudden. A 3 gold buff is insane. And in the future, when there's like more combo decks, anything that wants to draw a rapid amount of cards, maybe there'll even be combos that have more synergy with being able to draw cards from Cloaks. Like this is now like a major combo piece potential in the future, especially with Diabolic Revelation in the game. So this is just cool that it costs 10 now, in my opinion. Okay, and then lastly, we got some bumps from the previously 15 gold tier items. We got Hero's Cape, Plate Mail, and Claymore. They all cost 15 gold, and now Hero's Cape and Plate Mail cost 12, and Claymore cost 14. Presumably, the reasoning behind this is because, you know, health and armor are resources you only need so much of. After a certain point, they don't do anything, because when your hero is alive, they don't need to be more alive. You know, see, case in point, Tidehunter has more health than he really needs, and they're kind of respecting that by making these cheaper than the Claymore, which on the other hand, you know, attack is something that you can kind of always use as surplus of attack. You can always just kill towers faster sometimes. So I think this is fair changes. Again, these items are probably the worst of the basic kind of buff items just because they're so expensive and unnecessary. There can be some situations where you can buy a Hero's Cape or a Claymore maybe in the secret shop. That will happen on occasion. But in reality, these aren't really draft items for the most part. Maybe Claymore if you have kind of nothing else to kind of supplement a payday strategy with. You know, you could see stuff like that. But these items aren't really going to be noteworthy in either mode. They're just kind of like secret shop filler. Okay, so that is basically going through all the changes. And then they added just a couple of bug fixes, which I'm not really going to get into here. But one major change in the patch is that hovering gold in the HUD displays the amount of gold spent but not yet revealed through playing items. So basically, when I hover your gold amounts, and you have 2 items in hand, it'll say that you spent a total of 8 gold on these 2 items or something like that, right? So it does mean you kind of don't have to write down like gold amounts anymore. In tournaments, you know, you had all these players that are basically every single turn you spend golds, you see everyone just like writing down how much is left, right? Like I see someone spend 8 gold on 2 items and I write down, okay, it's 5 plus 3, right? And now you kind of don't have to do that anymore. I will say it doesn't give you perfect information. You should still be writing down some things, because it doesn't track how much gold was spent on each turn, right? So it'll tell you how much gold the total of remaining items are in their hand, but knowing like, you know, how much was spent on each turn is technically a little bit more information. But for the most part, you just won't see people bothering to write down gold anymore, which I think is probably a good thing. It's a convenience more than anything else. There's always going to be, listen, I know this meme. I like this meme. There's always going to be people saying, you know, must skill ceiling, because they did technically reduce the skill ceiling of the game. I think when it comes to skill ceiling discussions, it's important that the skill it's testing for is like a relevant skill to test for. Testing for the skill of just like, you know, paying attention when you don't really want to and when you want to be thinking about the strategy of the game, just paying attention in that moment and writing down what they had is not really the kind of skill they should be testing for. So I do actually agree with this change. I think it's probably for the best. And then finally, they added random 2 color deck options for private lobbies and tournaments. So if someone wants to do, they can host a tournament where every participant was randomly generated a 2 color deck with a bunch of random cards, which is like, I guess that's neat. Obviously, it's not super competitive, but hey, it's actually probably kind of fun for a lot of people that play the game in casual environments. You know, you've got a group of friends, you just want to load up the game with a group of friends. You get 4 people together. You know, if you have that many friends, rip if you don't. And then, you know, you put in this tournament. Maybe you've done draft for a few days in a row and you want to try something else. This is actually kind of fun. I've actually done friend matches with this mode before, and I kind of liked it. I mean, it's kind of high rolly, but I think it fits this game a lot better than it fits something like Hearthstone. For the same reason that draft kind of feels better in this game, because there's a lot of agency, so it feels like when you're using a bunch of like random cards, you still have a lot of influence over the control of the game. So I don't know, it's kind of fun, but not really competitive. That's and that's basically going to be it. Oh yeah, there is actually one more thing. Automated open tournaments are now Chaos Blitz. Chaos Blitz is now random 2-speed color speed timer, 8-player free-for-all lasting 1 hour and 30 minutes. To be honest, I never really got into the automated open tournaments. The speed timer means 10 seconds to take each action, so it's kind of like bullet artifact, sort of like how bullet chess was a thing, which is kind of cool. It's interesting, you know. I'm sure it's fun to try out, although probably not my cup of tea personally. Anyway, that's the patch in a nutshell. You know what? There is one more change. It's actually a non-change. And the unchanged is still in it for the long haul. That's kind of cute. But anyway, that's pretty much it. Pretty straightforward patch. They didn't really change, you know, major things. I think they mostly just communicated that they're willing to make a lot of changes, right? Like, the items, it's probably not the most impactful area of cards they could have changed. Like, they didn't change, like, main deck cards or heroes in this patch, but they're kind of further communicating they're willing to make a lot of changes, right? Like, a lot of people early on were kind of scared, myself included. I was actually kind of scared that they would not be willing to make a lot of changes. So I knew they would nerf where nerfs were necessary. I knew they would nerf, like, Axe or Drow. Like, even if I didn't have some minor knowledge, like, I you know, they have to nerf the broken stuff. They were always going to kind of break their pattern for that. But I personally didn't really expect them to change so many things. I'm very happy that they're kind of communicating with this patch that they're going to be changing a lot of stuff in the future. I don't think these particular changes are really the ones like the game needs right now, personally, at all. Like, it's just very, very minor stuff, right? But the fact that like they're just going to be continuing to make a bunch of minor tweaks is pretty exciting, I think. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they have in store for us, like in the next week or the next couple of weeks, where they start to maybe get into some of the main deck cards and changing things around there or redesigning certain things. Anyway, it's going to be it for me, and I'll see you guys next time. And then that's a cut. And that's the end of my YouTube recording. Okay. And there it is. All right, guys.